In the Quran, Allah is absolutely obsessed with making sure everyone knows He's only one God. And yet, over and over again in the Quran, Allah refers to Himself using plural pronouns: we, our, us. Why would Allah use we, our, and us when He has no partner? Why would Allah confuse His followers and undermine Tawheed? In this video, we'll go through some examples of Allah's preferred pronouns in the Quran. Then we'll read a few comments about the confusion Allah has caused by misnumbering Himself. Then we'll hear from Muslim experts, including Zakir Naik, Numan Ali Khan, and Sheikh Asim al-Hakim, who explain why Allah identifies as plural. And finally, we'll see how Allah's transition from singular to plural points us to the Trinity. Let's get this plural parade started. Surah 50, verse 38. And verily we created the heavens and the earth and all that is between them in 6 days, and naught of weariness touched us. We created the heavens and the earth, naught of weariness touched us. Plural days, plural Allahs. Surah 2, verse 23. And if you are in doubt as to that which we have revealed to our servant, then produce a chapter like it, and call on your witnesses besides Allah, if you are truthful. If you are in doubt as to that which we have revealed to our servant. Here Allah refers to Himself in the plural, as He claims that no one can write anything as wonderful as a chapter of the Quran. Surah 2, verse 106. Whatever communications we abrogate or cause to be forgotten, we bring one better than it or like it. Do you not know that Allah has power over all things? Whatever communications we abrogate, we bring one better than it or like it. Allah uses plural pronouns as He points out that whenever He abrogates or cancels a verse of His perfect eternal speech, He replaces that verse of His perfect eternal speech with something better than it or like it. Surah 4, verse 56. Those who reject our signs, we shall soon cast into the fire. As often as their skins are roasted through, we shall change them for fresh skins, that they may taste the penalty. For God is exalted in power, wise. Those who reject our signs, we shall soon cast into the fire. As often as their skins are roasted through, we shall change them for fresh skins. That's a stern warning to anyone who has a problem with Allah's preferred pronouns in the Quran. Surah 10, verse 94. But if you, Muhammad, are in doubt as to what we have revealed to you, ask those who read the book before you. Certainly the truth has come to you from your Lord, therefore you should not be of the disputers. If you are in doubt as to what we have revealed to you. Muhammad was having doubts about whether his revelations were really coming from God. If you've read Muhammad's earliest biography, you know that his first impression of his revelations was that they were demonic. He had to be talked out of this view by his wife and her cousin, who weren't in the cave with him and who had no clue what possessed him. But his doubts occasionally resurfaced, and Allah used plural pronouns when He told Muhammad to go to the people of the book, Jews and Christians, to make sure his revelations lined up with our revelations. Spoiler alert, they don't. So Muhammad failed the test, and now his followers are forced to say that our book has been corrupted. Surah 66, verse 12. And Mary, daughter of Imran, who guarded her private parts, and we breathed therein of our spirit, and she verified the words of her Lord and His books, and was of the devout. We breathed therein of our spirit. Many Muslims insist that the spirit of Allah here is the angel Gabriel, which would mean that Allah uses plural pronouns as He describes breathing the angel Gabriel into Mary's private parts. Allah uses this plural language, we, our, us, like a beating drum in the Quran. And this raises an obvious question, which people ask me whenever I quote any of these verses. If Allah is trying so hard to convince his listeners and readers that he's a Unitarian deity, why does he repeatedly identify as plural by using pronouns like we, our, and us? Let me give you a few examples from the comment section of my last video where I quoted the Quran. Inquiring minds want to know, we created you. Who is the we? Why does the Quran, when speaking of Allah's actions, always refer to him as we? Do Muslims pick up on the we in the verse about how we put the human body together? Timestamp 430. Who is the we in the Quran verse being quoted? Who is the we? Poetic but not truth. Who is we? Why Allah said we made? Isn't just one creator? Or they have a Trinity concept as well? We created you from dust? Who is we in the Quran? Does anyone ever find it weird the Quran always uses we? That we have sent down. So who are we? Muslims. If Allah has no partners or didn't copy from the Bible, then who is the we? How do you not realize that Muhammad copied from the Bible? If he didn't, then how does he get we sent it down? So much confusion caused by Allah's preferred pronouns. Why does he use them? Sadly, he never explains in his perfectly clear book that always confuses everyone who reads it. But his followers are here to help with this confusion, and they want us to know that Allah is using the plural of majesty, the plural of respect, the royal we, to demonstrate his greatness and his glorious nature.
Brother, we in Arabic, the two types. One is we for plural, one is royal plural. Some places uses I, some places uses we. The we in Arabic does not indicate plurality. It means royal plural.
Why is we used for Allah in the Quran? That's the question. In the Quran, you will find different kinds of pronouns used for Allah. The only time he uses the plural is in which person? First person. And in first person you find ana and you find nahnu. Ana and nahnu. I and we. Nahnu is used when Allah speaks in the role of a king, in the role of majesty.
Allah uses plural form to indicate his greatness.
When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the word nahnu for himself, referring to himself in the glorious Quran, it is not the plural of number, but it is a royal plural or plural of respect.
In Arabic language and also in other languages, such a pronoun can be used when an individual is glorifying himself. They use the pronoun we as a form of glorification. And this is well known in Arabic, and Allah Azza wa Jal definitely is the most worthy of such glorification. Allah knows best.
So, when Allah uses the pronouns we, our, and us, it's because he's a fan of the plural of majesty. What's the plural of majesty? The plural of majesty is the use of plural pronouns to refer to a singular subject or person in order to assert the majesty and greatness and glory of the subject or person. Keep in mind that Allah uses the plural of majesty from all eternity. The Quran is supposedly Allah's eternal speech. So from all eternity, Allah has been referring to himself as plural, even though he's not, in order to declare and demonstrate his majesty and greatness. But notice the underlying assumption here. The underlying assumption of the plural of majesty is that it's greater and more majestic to be plural. It's greater and more majestic to be a we than to be an I. If Allah uses plural pronouns to declare and demonstrate his majesty, then being plural is somehow more majestic than being singular. Nevertheless, the Quran regularly affirms, at least in principle, that monotheism is superior to polytheism. The Quran condemns polytheism. Monotheism is the only acceptable theology in Islam. Now, if monotheism is the only acceptable theology, and yet being plural is greater and more majestic than being singular, what can we conclude? We can conclude that according to Allah himself in his eternal speech, the greatest, most majestic deity would be a deity that is monotheistic and yet somehow plural. According to Allah Himself, in His eternal speech, the greatest, most majestic deity would be not an absolute unity, but some sort of compound unity. According to Allah Himself, in His eternal speech, the greatest, most majestic deity would not be Unitarian, but, dare I say, Trinitarian? According to Islam, then, the Unitarian God of the Quran just isn't as great or majestic as the triune God of the Bible. I couldn't agree more. Muslims and I finally have something that we can agree on completely. The triune God of the Bible is greater and more majestic than the wannabe plural God of the Quran. The God of the Bible can refer to Himself using plural pronouns and really mean it because He exists eternally as Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. The less majestic God of the Quran can refer to Himself using plural pronouns, but He can't really mean it. Because even though He admires plurality and regards it as more majestic than singularity, He remains forever lonely in His total isolation. And yet, our Muslim friends criticize and even mock the Trinity, even though the Trinity is, according to the Quran itself, a greater and more majestic concept of God than Tawheed. The God of the Bible can use plural pronouns and mean it. The God of the Quran can only identify as plural. He's trans-plural. Does that mean we have to affirm Allah's preferred pronouns? Not at all. Allah orders Christians to say not three. Hey, Allah of the Quran, say not we.